Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Signs, Planets, and Stellar Rhythms. This is your astrologer host, Erik Roth, talking about what's upcoming here in the sky and what do the astrological conditions warrant. What is the forecast coming up? There's a lot to share, and this is also commenting also on the March alignments and all of the things that are going on along with this upcoming solar eclipse. So let's, without further ado, let's get started on that. All right, so we're back to another episode here, episode 65. This is a episode focused in on this upcoming, quote, partial solar eclipse. It's an eclipse that really barely warrants the partial title, only because it's not a total, that it fits into the partial category, but the vast majority of the sun's disk will be covered by the sun at its most center point if somebody's up in the Canadian and or Greenland territory on the east side of Canada. But yeah, this is part of this really magical time in the world where all the planets are lining up in Pisces and in Aries. This has been building off and on for the last month and a half. And I talked a lot about the alignments in the previous episode about March 2025 and kind of the outlook about what's going on and in this month here. As of this recording, this is the 18th of March, 2025. So we're only 11 days away from this really significant solar eclipse happening in the middle of this really significant alignment. Okay, so let's see what are some of the things we're going to be talking about. Obviously, the eclipse. We're also going to talk about the Aries Pisces alchemy, kind of sprinkled throughout this episode, which includes the stellium and Aries and Pisces. And then it's really, this eclipse is a bridge from March into April, being at the end of the month, and that there's a bunch of other things happening at the end of the month. There's three other significant things that are happening on the same day as the eclipse. So really, this is really, really rare territory for the world, for humanity. And so we get to be here on this planet, taking part in this and experiencing these really incredible changes that are occurring. So 93% of the sun's disk will be obscured on this day in eastern and in northeastern Canada, less so in Greenland. The US state of Maine and part of northern and western Europe will also be able to see a little bit of that, witness a little bit less of the sun cover during that, and then a little bit more in like a bit less in some of the New England states of the US. So it's mostly in the Newfoundland and Labrador and some of the Inuit territories or the native territories up in Canada. This solar eclipse captures the energy of March and April. It resides in the major Pisces-Aries stellium that is in form and in the months of March and April, and continues a bit into May as well, the month of May 2025. It also takes place in the middle of this 2-month period centering on humanity's experiential transition. So we can think of this eclipse as one of many things that have occurred in recent years that are symbolizing our transition from one multi-thousand year age to another multi-thousand year age. And, Pluto and Aquarius would be thrown into this as well. This upcoming Saturn-Neptune conjunction and the Neptune and Aries piece, that'll be a couple of different videos for that. One just on Neptune and Aries, and then another one about the 2025-2026 period of Neptune-Saturn conjunction period, which is really, really significant. So I'm going to be taking people on a journey around what that means in upcoming videos in March and April and beyond. So this partial new moon eclipse, as you can see here, it takes place in this area of the chart at 9 degrees even Aries. We can see Mercury still at the time of the eclipse, uh, still in the sign of Aries, but it does later that day retrograde into Pisces, where it will conjunct Neptune. So that'll be two other events that will take place. The other event that takes place on the same day is Venus's heliacal rise, which took place actually just before the morning of March 29th. So well, yeah, I guess technically it might have been, depending on where you are. So it would be 3:57 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, not Standard Time, as I have it shown there, because we moved the clocks forward 1 hour just recently. So just as far as the time check, I recommend for eclipses to go to timeanddate.com. And is spelled out AND. I might have a link below just so people can click on that and just find some basic information about the eclipse and the maps and where if you're going to travel somewhere to go see the eclipse. Also where it is specifically and how much coverage of the sun will be in your neck of the woods if it's covered at all where you might be, or at least at the same time where your time zone might be somewhere on the earth to watch that and to tune into the energy at that time. All right, so here's the actual area of the map where the eclipse is centered. You can see part of the U.S. has a little bit of the partial, so that New England area down into New York, a little bit into Pennsylvania, but that's a really, really thin sliver of the eclipse. But most of that, Maine will have, I think, around 80% of the eclipse of the 90%, so 70, maybe 70, 80%, depending on what part of Maine you're in. But really the center, this dark half circle, equalit, e, I'm not pronouncing that right, Nunavut, perhaps Quebec, Newfoundland and Labrador, and then of course Greenland being sort of at the outside of that half circle. But really, and you could see Iceland, the UK, parts of Western and Northern Europe, and then the very, very, just a very thin slice of the sun will be visible in the northwestern African and Morocco in particular. We'll be able to see that. And of course, if you happen to be on the islands in the Atlantic, here, the North Atlantic, or in Iceland, you'll be able to witness part of the eclipse as well. So again, this is on March 29th, 2025, where 93%, at its maximum, 93% of the solar disk is obscured. Oh, and the time frame, just to look at the upper right corner here, 1:50 a.m. to 5:43 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So that's why I recommend you go to timeanddate.com and they can easily convert your time wherever you may be on the globe. All right, so this is a North Node eclipse at 9 degrees Aries on 3/29/2025. So there's a North and a South Node. They're always exactly opposite. They represent the intersection points where the moon's orbit connects with the ecliptic, or the path of the sun in the sky. So when it goes from south to north, it's a north node. When it goes from north to south, it's going downward to the south node. So this one, though, is appearing where the sun is in the sign of Aries, and that's where the north node happens to be, in the sign of Aries. And so moved from Aries into north nodes in Pisces, but just on the edge, just a few degrees in. So you get close to a full total eclipse because we're in about roughly 11 to 12 degrees of the node. So the closer it is to the node, the sun is, the more total a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse can be. So North Node carries an energy with it that may provide a glimpse into humanity's mission and higher self, along with the future. So this day is in the eve of a highly significant ingress of Neptune into Aries, which is the day after March 30th, and later Saturn 2 months later on May 24th into the signs of Aries. It is a moment where we may see our greater vision and purpose, or at least a place where we can focus upon. The degree of this eclipse also draws us in with Mercury and Venus energies as they station retrograde near this eclipse point. The eclipse then becomes an emphasis of what the cosmos may be attempting to convey. So there is some significant energy sitting around that 9 to 10 degree range of Aries. When Venus stationed retrograde, it was at 10 degrees 50 minutes Aries. When Mercury stationed retrograde, it was at 9 degrees 35 minutes Aries. And this eclipse is at 9 Aries. There's a lot of planets and points hitting, and the sun as well, hitting the 9 degree as well as the 0 degree mark of Aries. So this month, in the month of March, so it's really profound, combined with the month of April. You get a couple extra in there because of the Mercury and Venus's ingress back into Aries later in the month of April. So this is a really critical time for humanity. March and April are really setting up sort of the seeding of how humanity may be going, particularly for 2025 and 2026, because there's a whole slew of other major events that are coming into the late mid 2020s and the late 2020s that are really, really highly significant as well. And so this period is really kind of starting off that whole 2025 is starting off that whole energy and how that's really going to go for us. And so March and April being like one of the big centerpieces, with another period, between June and August as well, here in 2025. So also when I do eclipse videos and sometimes with other special points, I look at the Sabian symbol. And so this is a really, really interesting one. So the Sabian symbol, we always add 1 to the Sabian symbol because they count them from 1 to 30, whereas the zodiacal degrees are from 0 through 2959. So they have the rounded numbers in the Sabian symbol. So in Linda Hill's book, The Sabian Oracle, which was highly influenced by, she was influenced by Dane Rudhyar and Mark Edmund Jones as well in his work with the Sabian symbols. So she gives a image of a teacher gives new symbolic forms to traditional images. So the key words of this are new dimensions breaking old thought forms or behaviors, quantum science, innovation and recreation, working with educational tools, finding new inspiration, being, quote, ahead of one's time, end quote, new age consciousness, ideas out of the past for one's future, and sticking one's neck out along with rewriting the book. So this is a really powerful moment where we can think of, the symbolism of connecting into something where we're trying to break free from this old language and system and structure that we've been under for a long, long time. This patriarchal system has its pluses and it has its minuses, and it's sort of in a state of decay, if you will. And like what new ideas can take shape? What can we create? Maybe new forms of government that are more balanced and healthy for the general populace. Maybe new ways of having healthcare and social interactions, relationships, education, economics, capitalism. What is that? It's going through transformation as well. And here in the United States, where we have this really, we've had immense corporate influence for many, many decades. And, it's just become much more obvious nowadays. And so this is an opportunity to really kind of rebalance the scales in that regard, to where it's like, hey, wait a minute, it's not just money that counts, as actually human beings, it's actually people. Those are the things that really count. And so it's making that known. And Aries if anything, it fights for what is just and what is right in its approach, and something that's worth fighting for, something's worth believing in, something's worth devoting attention and energy toward. And this could be where the Sabian symbol stirs up the new methodologies, new systems, new structures that could show up in not just our lives on a personal level, but in the world as well for humanity. So here's where it will be in the sky. Now, a lot of this you won't be able to see just if you're with the out there witnessing this eclipse. This is a night sky image from the Torngat Mountains National Park in Newfoundland, Labrador, Canada. So, and that's at what is that show? It's up there north of, I think, 50 degrees north latitude, um, past that perhaps. But here's the eclipse right where one of the fish are coming down over the ecliptic and into the knot. And here's Mercury and Venus. So this eclipse, a person may be able to see Venus at 93%. It might be a bit difficult. I don't think it will be visible, but there's always a possibility. I've seen Venus during a total solar eclipse. I've even seen Jupiter as well. But Mercury and Saturn will definitely not be visible during that time. Venus would be the only one that could potentially be visible. It actually rises into visibility before the sun that morning. Um, and so there may be some potential for it to be witnessed there in Canada and potentially in the state of Maine as well. All right, so but you can see this is in the fish constellation. You can see that the start of Aries is actually begins in this fish constellation right here where Mercury is. It's because Mercury's retrograding into Pisces on that same day. And you can see Saturn about to catch up now. Neptune not on the map, but it's in this general vicinity right in here, about to enter into this 0 degrees Aries, which is right here. And then, yes, okay. So this is eclipses all are always part of eclipse families. So this partial solar eclipse is a part of Saros 149, which is an eclipse family. They take every eclipse in the family takes place 18 years and 11 days later. The last time it took place was March 19th, 2007 at 2807 Pisces. So that's really interesting, connection. There is something there, which was 2007. Pluto had not yet moved into Capricorn at that time, but it was the beginning of some really powerful changes in the world, particularly on an economic level. And when you were talking about the housing market and the economic the bank failures, like that was some of the earliest signs were starting to come through in 2007 before everyone really woke up to that in 2008. And at that time also, there was a Saturn-Neptune opposition, and Pluto was at the 29th degree of Sagittarius squaring the eclipse. So we can see how, that particular eclipse was really, really powerful. It involved Saturn Neptune as well, and essentially, the energies that were taking place, but Pluto even more so at the 29th degree of Sag, squaring the 28th degree of Pisces on that March 19th, 2007. So the next one in this same family won't take place until April 9th with an annular solar eclipse. So we're getting an annular instead of a partial. That'll be at 1949 Aries. And all eclipse families can last between 1200 and almost 1500 years. So this eclipse family and Saros series will not end until the year 2926. So it goes on for it began in 1664, will go on a total of 1262 years. And you can find out about like data about specific Saros eclipse families at NASA's website. If you just type in NASA eclipse Saros, You should come out with those. Here's a link on the video, and I'll provide a link at the in the description of this below on the video. Okay, there's also a tie-in to a 3-year lunation. This is something that I shared about in a video I did with Caitlin Castell about the full moon, which was this eclipse that we experienced, the lunar eclipse. So the moon has a 3-year lunation pattern. From any point of a day in a lunar phase, you can go back about 3 years and three to 5 days earlier or later to find the same phase of the moon in the same sign or very close to the same degree. This partial lunar new moon eclipse and March 29th goes back to 2022, though it wasn't an eclipse then. That new moon happened March 31st, 2022 at 11:30 Aries, so only a 2.5 degree difference. The 3-year lunation can be helpful in seeing the patterns in our lives, but also in the global human community. So that was, connecting the dots. You can look at sort of the wave that was happening at that time and what was happening energetically around the world. And that the full moon was a year and a half after that, which took place in 2023. And I think that would have been in probably September, October of 2023. And now we're coming into the complete cycle of the 3-year lunation. So the next one in this pattern, the next new moon in this pattern, it's going to, regress a bit by 3 to 5 days. So this one will be at 6:02 Aries on March 25th, 2028. So that'll be another date to look at. And so, we can see what could be taking place. I mean, certainly in politics, the 2022 was the midterms, and 2028 will be the U.S. general election, the next presidential election. A full moon will be kind of that midpoint, fruition point. So you can always go and look back a year and a half and find some connection from between the new moon, the full moon, and then the full moon to the back to the next new moon in the 3-year cycle. Aries Pisces alchemy, something I talked about this in the last video, but it's worth talking about again for March and April. So the overarching theme has a lot to do with how Pisces and Aries alchemize to form something unique. Aries is all about mission and purpose, all about connecting into that higher level of something worth fighting for, something worth doing, something a role worth playing to exercise oneself and to have their voice heard, be able to feel like you've contributed something, done something worth doing. So Pisces is more, though, a passive archetype that expresses itself through compassion, empathy, and dreams. So they're more of, like, in some ways, a follower, but they're drawn toward connecting to the oneness of all, like completing the pathway toward greater spiritual awakening awareness for all that we are. And there's that space of the alpha and omega point, something I talked about in the episode 64 in the March video, where humanity, because of this 29th point of Pisces and the 0-degree point of Aries coming back into form, is a chance to actually connect into the completion and starting something new. So together they can idealize this in a heart-centered force of nature, overcoming obstacles with great compassion and belief in a much higher purpose. So there's something, the alchemy between them, where they fine-tune each other, connect with each other, Aries being sort of the stronger force, the initiator, and Pisces being sort of the completer that comes in and finishes up that last big connection ultimately into wholeness. Kind of the at oneness, the emergence of the duality into one, where Aries kind of kicks off that first vibration. So you get that alpha and omega energy, really especially this month and into next month, really supercharged for the world. So this is just a recap of like the how many things. Oops. Whoa, where are we? Okay, here we go. Yes. Um, how many things are happening in the month of March? You can really see, and here's this partial solar eclipse up here, this blue box, dark blue box, Venus heliacal rise, Mercury at zero Aries, going into back into Pisces, Mercury Neptune conjunction, all happening on the 29th. And the very next day, Neptune moves into Aries, first time since 1861 to 1875, I believe, right in the middle of all the Civil War and the reconstruction of um, the South, and also what was happening. And I'll talk about this more in the the next video that I do about which will be about Neptune and Aries. There is in Russia at that time, the Tsar was in charge, and there was a an order that was passed, a law that was passed, granting serfs independence. That means they were no longer beholden to the landowners. They were allowed to leave, and the people that served in the household, while they didn't own any land, they were also free to do what they wanted to do, not beholden to. It was almost like a form of slavery, serfdom. But the individuals who worked on the land, they were also allowed to maybe own parts or buy parts of the land from the landowners as well. So there was a massive shift and the growing change of wealth, and how we viewed individuality. And so instead of just being this, like the hierarchy was starting to break down at that level there in Russia. Now, there were other things happening in 1861 too, other things that were creating more liberation. Um, and it's interesting that Neptune moved into Aries, and when in 1862 and 1863, Saturn was opposite Neptune, and Saturn in Libra. So there's something really powerful about the Saturn-Neptune alignments and how they liberate things. And it's especially in this Libra Aries polarity. And so this is an opportunity. Like humanity is in for quite a ride coming up, not just in 2025, but beyond. That's we're just at the tip of what could potentially happen here. So here's again just a laundry list of all the things that are happening in Aries and Pisces. It doesn't even include the Chiron square Mars. There's one more Chiron Mars square that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. And that's something that I'll mention in a social media post, but I'll probably mention it in a future video here as part of like a look at as we move from Chiron Aries into Taurus in 2026. Another outer planet moving into a new sign. That's going to also signal part of another wave that's coming through. Mentioned about the alpha and omega points, something you can watch that March 2025 video to learn more about it beyond what I've shared here. So this is that I got highlighted that March area right here, this yellow highlight, and you can see like a total of includes the outer planets, doesn't include the moon, which does that every month. A total of 14 times. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, 14 times. In September and October, those are that's when Neptune and Saturn move back into the signs of, or the sign of Pisces. And then 0 degrees Aries and 29 Pisces. So I got there 29 zero hits. So this is a really, really unusual, the amount of planets and points that are being activated here. And if we throw in the eclipse, even though the two eclipses that happen in March happen, on each side of the 0 degree Aries mark, 29 degree Pisces mark. I think there'll be another time down the road where there will be an eclipse right at the right around the equinox point where the sun is at the March equinox. And then of course Neptune Aries, this is Again, more about this when I do a Neptune Aries video. It's from 2025 to 2039. This harkens back to 1861 to 1875. It's a really on its basic level, when we combine Saturn and Neptune, it's an entire new reality and era is being seeded. And if you throw in Pluto and Aquarius, we know that there's a strong Aquarian vision and revolutionary time also coming as well as part of that that's being seeded. So um, know that we live in very, very unusual and rare times, and we're moving into a new territory, and it has yet to even show itself. Like this is sort of like we can call it the chaos, the chaotic period before we move into a new semblance of order, if you will, with new ideas and trying to find purchase, trying to find rootedness, trying to find groundedness. And that's why Saturn's position coming in is going to help us try to find that place where we can root it in a more earthly kind of way rather than just an illusion or in the clouds, like it's been for quite a while with Neptune and Pisces and Saturn and Pisces. Well, thank you all for watching this video. Like and subscribe if you do, and share it with others if also. I am a shamanic alchemical astrologer, and you can reach me by email at inspiralnexus@gmail.com or my website, inspiralnexus.com. You can also find online classes I've co-taught with Kaylin Castell at mystaralchemy.com. And I am here as a living, doing this for a living, not only making videos and posts and writing, but also do full astrology readings for people, individual personal readings, horoscopes, astrocartography, mentoring. I teach it. I travel up and down the West Coast, California, Oregon, and Washington, doing psychic and healing fairs, body, mind, spirit fairs, that sort of thing. So yeah, follow me on my calendar online, my website, but also any events that might be posted either on my newsletter or through my social media, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, and YouTube, of course. All right. Thank you all.